Get them out of here, now. Right now, I can't believe this. Monroe's voice cut clean through the room, firm, controlled, leaving no space for argument. Security moved swiftly, escorting the protesting figures away as whispers rippled through the crowd. For a brief moment, tension hung heavy in the air, and then everything shifted. The doors opened. It was the day of the wedding. At the altar, Monroe stood tall and composed, every inch the groom, handsome, confident, dressed in rich tones of deep purple, with gold and platinum accents that shimmered under the soft glow of chandeliers. The luxurious venue radiated elegance, from the polished floors to the cascading floral arrangements of white and violet, every detail. Her gown flowed like silk in motion, strapless, radiant in soft purple hues, adorned with delicate gold and platinum embellishments that caught the light with every step. Her presence alone seemed to quiet the room, replacing earlier tension with awe.
Guests smiled warmly, some even wiping tears, completely drawn into the beauty of the moment. At the altar, their eyes met, and everything else faded. Love. Real, undeniable love. But not everyone shared in the joy. Seated among the guests, two identical figures, twin sisters, watched with tight expressions. Their matching yellow attire stood in sharp contrast to the elegance around them. Their eyes followed Amata with quiet resentment, their smiles forced, their whispers sharp. Where the room saw a fairy tale, they saw something they couldn't control. Still, nothing could break the moment. Monroe reached for Amata's hands, and this time no one would interrupt. The officiant's voice rang clear and ceremonial through the grand hall. Speak now or forever hold your peace. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then, a hand slowly rose from the crowd. Gasps rippled across the room. Heads turned. Monroe's expression hardened, Amata's grip on his hands tightening as uncertainty flickered in her eyes. A man stepped forward. I have something to say. Whispers spread like wildfire. The joyful atmosphere fractured instantly. He cleared his throat, glancing briefly toward the two twin women, just enough to reveal something calculated behind the moment. This woman, he began, pointing toward Amata, is not who you think she is. The room fell silent. She comes from nothing, a shelter. No status. No background. No worth. His voice grew sharper, more cutting. You're marrying trash. A collective gasp filled the air. Some guests looked stunned, others uncomfortable, a few glancing between Monroe and Amata, unsure of what to believe. And then, Monroe moved. His hand tightened around hers, steady and unshaken. He stepped slightly in front of her, his presence protective, eyes locked onto the man with controlled intensity. Watch your mouth. His voice was low, but it carried across the entire room. That woman you're talking about built herself from places most people wouldn't survive. Her past isn't shameful, it's proof of her strength. He took a step forward. And you? His gaze sharpened. You were paid to stand here and disrespect her on the most important day of our lives. The room shifted again, this time in Amata's favor. Murmurs of disapproval turned toward the man. Monroe didn't break eye contact. Now I'll say it once, get out. Security began moving in again, the tension snapping as the man hesitated before being escorted away. Behind him, the twins sat stiffly, their plan unraveling in real time. Monroe turned back to Amata, gently lifting her chin. They don't define you, he said quietly. Not today. Not ever. And this time, the silence in the room wasn't tension. It was respect. At that point, Monroe raised his hand and snapped his fingers twice. His chauffeur appeared quickly, and he whispered 2 sentences in his ear. Amata stopped crying and smiled with hope. Within moments, quiet coordination replaced chaos. Guests were guided out, murmurs of confusion turning into curiosity as luxury vehicles lined up outside. What was meant to be interrupted was simply moving somewhere better. The celebration wasn't canceled. It was elevated.
The sun dipped low as the private cruiser awaited them, glistening against the water like something out of a dream. Gold light reflected across the deck, blending perfectly with the wedding's signature hues, purple, gold, and platinum woven into every elegant detail. Soft music played. The air felt lighter, freer. Guests settled in, now smiling again, impressed by the seamless transition. The earlier disruption felt distant, small compared to what stood before them. At the front of the deck, beneath an arch of flowing florals and silk, Monroe and Amata stood once more. Stronger. Unshaken. The officiant, now with a quiet smile, began again. Family, friends, we are gathered here today, not just to witness love, but to witness a love that cannot be broken. Monroe never took his eyes off his beautiful queen Amata. Her eyes stayed tightly glued on Monroe, her king. A gleaming strong pillar of handsome power.
Married outside near blue water and open skies. At the very last moment, Monroe made one more decision. Quiet. Intentional. Just 2 witnesses, he said. The shift was immediate. The larger crowd, still buzzing with excitement, was gently redirected inside the ship's grand ballroom, where music, lights, and celebration awaited them. Laughter and conversation carried through the doors as they closed, leaving behind something far more intimate. Outside, on the open deck, there was only sky, water, and truth. The blue stretched endlessly in every direction, the horizon melting into soft gold as the sun began to set. The wind moved gently, carrying a calm that felt almost sacred. Amata stood beside Monroe, her gown catching the light, her presence serene and powerful. Across from them stood the officiant. And, just behind, their 2 witnesses. A silver-haired, refined woman, elegant, poised, her quiet smile filled with knowing, as if she understood the weight of this moment beyond words. And Monroe's chauffeur, standing tall and respectful, hands clasped, honored to be present not just as staff, but as someone trusted. No crowd, no noise, no interference, just intention. At the front of the deck, beneath an arch of flowing florals and silk, Monroe and Amata stood once more. Stronger, unshaken. The officiant, now with a quiet smile, began again. Family, friends, we are gathered here today, not just to witness love, but to witness a love that cannot be broken. Monroe never took his eyes off Amata. Amata, glowing in the soft sunset, held his hands with renewed confidence. Nothing else mattered. No whispers. No past. No interruptions. Only them. The officiant paused, then spoke the words that carried everything forward. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. A breath. A moment. A lifetime. You may now kiss your bride. Monroe didn't hesitate. He pulled Amata close, firm, certain, and kissed her as the crowd erupted into applause. Cheers echoed across the water, music swelling as the sky deepened into twilight. Behind them, the horizon stretched wide and endless. And, just like that, their new beginning sailed forward. The orchestra slowed to an uneasy silence as Monroe and Amata stood at the railing of the luxury cruise reception deck, surrounded by glowing chandeliers and elegantly dressed guests. Laughter faded. Glasses lowered. Then came shouting from the water below. Guest whispers rippled across the deck as a small white boat drifted into view through the moonlit waves. Standing dramatically at the front were the 2 stepsisters dressed in matching yellow outfits, hair blowing wildly in the wind. Each held giant handmade signs above their heads. He is our brother. Family is thicker than water. Monroe looked appalled and said, You are too late. You may as well join us as Mr. and Mrs. Monroe Chambers. Everyone then burst into laughter as the security crew helped them on board. Monroe and Amata were escorted to their wedding feast with a view of the blue vast ocean on a private deluxe balcony. They enjoyed fresh organic fruits, imported cheeses from Italy, cassava leaf, egusi soup, okra soup, fufu with cheese from Africa, and only the finest aged bottle of wine imported from France, labeled in platinum letters, same-day delivery from helicopter above the cruise ship. Monroe and Amata were escorted to their wedding feast with a view of the blue vast ocean on a private deluxe balcony. They enjoyed fresh organic fruits, imported cheeses from Italy, cassava leaf, egusi soup, okra soup, fufu with cheese from Africa, and only the finest aged bottle of wine imported from France, labeled in platinum letters, same-day delivery from helicopter above the cruise ship. They enjoyed each other immensely. Loving words, kisses, hugs, and laughter was exchanged as they both fed each other fruits and the fine cuisine before them. Suddenly, the twins were right behind them yet again, just spying, staring, and bringing unwanted negative vibes. One sneered, "It won't last." Monroe made one call on speed dial AMD. Within a matter of 8 seconds or less, security arrived. "Security," he said firmly. "Not again." The guests collectively exhaled, realizing the honeymoon drama was far from over. Security put the two in cuffs and put them in a room for an hour to discuss the fact that once the boat docks, they could be taken into custody on land for trespassing, since they don't have actual invitations to be on board. Amata and Monroe danced, thanked their guests, and reconvened to the honeymoon suite that had rose petals and candles. He carried Amata lovingly over the threshold as she giggled with glee. They showered and began getting closer when suddenly Amata points at the window, and you wouldn't believe it if I wasn't telling this story, and here is the proof on video. So, if you're enjoying this story, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and tell me your thoughts on what would you do if this were your wedding day. The two sisters were hoisted outside the window, dangling from a rope ladder peering into their honeymoon bedroom window. Monroe dashed to the window and yanked the curtains tightly closed. The chaos from the sisters in the boat replayed over and over in her mind. She wrapped her silk robe tighter around herself and looked down. "What if they never stop?" she whispered softly. Monroe stepped behind her, gently placing his hands around hers. His voice was calm and steady. "Then we face it together." He guided her toward the bedside, where soft golden lamps glowed against the luxurious purple and gold room. Side by side, they knelt together and bowed their heads in prayer, asking for peace, protection, and strength over their marriage. As the ship drifted beneath the moonlit sky, the tension slowly melted from Amata's face. Afterward, Monroe lifted her chin tenderly, and the newlyweds embraced with all the love and relief they had been holding back through the long, dramatic day. They spent the night wrapped in each other's arms, sharing kisses, laughter, and deep affection until exhaustion finally overtook them. Warm and breathless beneath the satin covers, they drifted into a peaceful sleep together with smiles on their faces. As the newlyweds wandered hand in hand beneath glowing lanterns and drifting butterflies, laughter danced between them like music in the warm evening air. But hidden deep within the flowering hedges, the two stepsisters crouched in silence beneath wide-brimmed hats, binoculars glinting in the fading sunlight. One slowly lowered her glasses, lips curling into a jealous smirk. "Enjoy the fairy tale while it lasts," she whispered. Monroe didn't even look up, nor did Amata. He pressed a button in his pocket and security guards popped out the bushes on a golf cart. Security said, "Come on, ladies. This ends now. You will not be reboarding the cruise ship and will likely serve a minimum 72 hours in a holding cell until a judge can hear your defense, if you even have one, for your case. Get on the golf carts. Right now. No talking. This circus ends now." Security cuffed them both securely to the golf cart and drove directly to higher officers waiting right outside the butterfly flower garden. Monroe had anticipated they would bother them yet again and had made quick plan of action with security personnel while Amata still fast asleep.
"Yes, this is Monroe. Be ready."
They sat side by side on the plush bed, their goals book spread open between them as they talked softly about the future they were building together. Amara traced her finger down a page filled with dreams, savings plans, and places they hoped to travel, while Monroe listened closely, occasionally adding new ideas in neat handwriting. The warm glow from the bedside lamps made the room feel peaceful and safe. Afterward, Amara slipped into her silk robe and began applying her beauty cream in front of the vanity mirror, carefully smoothing it across her cheeks while humming softly to herself. Monroe relaxed against the headboard in bed with the television on, completely focused on the football game playing across the large screen. Every now and then he glanced over at her with a smile, enjoying the calmness of the evening. Later that night, they visited Royal Deluxe Massage Services for an exclusive romantic luxury spa experience. They were escorted into elegant private couples-only treatment rooms filled with calming music, dim amber lighting, and the scent of lavender in the air. Skilled therapists treated them to high-end massages, warm stone therapy, and soothing foot treatments while they relaxed completely. Beside them sat silver trays filled with fresh fruit, imported cheeses, and sparkling drinks. A polished silver service bell rested nearby, allowing them to request anything more that they desired with a simple ring. Their honeymoon was a big success, and they both were feeling the love in full bloom. With all that love, you have to wonder how doubt can creep into his mind. Such beautiful memories at the park. So many attempts by his sisters to get him to change his mind and break it off. So much interference and snake moves. Amara had a gut feeling, but trusted her man completely until the envelope arrived 2 months after their baby boy was born. The stress finally gave way on that day, and Amara started to have frequent fainting spells again. One which rushed her to the hospital because she did not wake up that time. Stay tuned for the next episode, since Amara was ready to throw in the towel. Either he do something about his family, or she and their newborn were relocating out of town to an unknown address. Amara's stress levels need to be low and controlled. Thank you for watching, subscribing, commenting, and feel free to watch previous stories here on Platinum Luxury Stories, and have a marvelous day. We will see you next time, my beautiful people.